Hey guys, I have another pen unboxing and initial impressions video, and this is the pen here. There we go. As you can see, it says 17,000 clear standard flex. This is a Noodlers pen. It's made by the same people who provide Noodlers inks, and this is a flex pen. Now, this isn't the first flex pen. Well, let me get it out of the box first. Just looking at the box. There we go. It's actually a clear demonstrator, which is nice. I don't really have many demonstrator pens, and I mainly got this for the different inks and some calligraphy work and whatnot. So the demonstrator is nice in that you can see kind of what color is actually in the pen. Like I said, this isn't the first time I've ever written it with this pen. It's definitely the first one I've owned. I have here to the side a red version. This actually belongs to my friend, and I borrowed it just because I never had experience with flex pens before. Excuse me. And granted, this was $14, but $14 could buy me like a bottle of ink or something, and I didn't want to just put the money down on it and have it go to waste. Now, these pens, I'll leave this here for now. I'll put it up top. These pens, they get relatively mixed reviews. People who get them to work right out of the box, they're pretty happy. The flex is pretty good. I hear that the pen's flex here is comparable to like a Namiki Falcon. Maybe it requires a little more pressure, but you get really nice line variation with this pen, and all of Noodler's pens, the Ahab, the Conrad, any of the Ebonite versions, you get really good line variations with it. The flow could be a little better. They tend to railroad quite a bit. But for cheap pens, like, what do you expect? This pen is $14. The Ahab is $20. I think the Conrad's $24, and the Ebonite Conrad is $40, I believe. So they're not overly expensive pens. They're on the cheap to intermediate price range. Now, from what I've seen, a lot of people complain about, most people's complaint about this pen is the fact that, either they'll have ink drip out from where the feed is, or it'll feel scratchy, or the flow won't be really good and whatnot. And the thing about these pens is that, the feed and the nib, they're friction fit into this section. Unfortunately, the only, you can't actually take the handle, where you would, the grip section off. There is no grip section here. This is all one part to the body, and then you have your feed and your nib, and then you have your piston here. That's basically the whole pen. If you want to clean out the nib and the feed, flush water through it, and you don't want to have to, constantly open and close the converter to draw water through it, you basically just grip onto the nib and the feed, twist the body of the pen, and pull all of this out. It is, friction fitted. There also isn't really a designated spot where the nib sits on the feed, so you can actually vary how much the tine spread based on how, spread apart the nib and the feed are and everything. You can adjust the ink flow depending on how far the feed is pushed in to where the grip section is. I'm not going to do anything with this pen. I'm just going to try writing it out of box. And honestly, I've never adjusted it myself, so I can't really say for sure how difficult it is to really set things. My friend, he got this pen, and it writes pretty well. It's not the line variation, I don't know, it's actually pretty decent in my opinion. I honestly think that he could probably pull the nib further away from the feed out just a little bit, just to get the tines to spread out a little more. But, this is his pen. I've just borrowed it. I didn't make any adjustments to it. I just ran like 2 different inks through it, and, flushed out water and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm gonna ink this pen up. I'm going to ink it up with a Noodler's Beaver, which is a kind of a reddish brown color that I ordered with this pen. Actually, in this pen, my friend's pen, he actually had a Waterman's Havana Brown in there, and I wasn't really, I gotta be careful because Noodler really fills their inks up to the top. I was never a really big fan of brown inks in the past, but the Havana Brown by Waterman looked really nice when it was used in the Flex pen. So I decided to, give it a shot and order a bottle and see, if this is anything like the Waterman's. And let me just... So when you unscrew this piston section, you see your the plunger go all the way down. Then you would just dunk. You want to make sure that you dunk up to the grip section, into the ink. The way the feed is cut, it's not super... What's it called? It's not super fine or anything, so it won't really draw up ink from the nib in the feed section. There we go. Let's just get the ink in, and probably a good idea. You always want to... Yeah, that's fine. You want to close up your inks first. You don't want to have it spill or anything. And it's just... Okay, let's get that off the table. And I have my trusty Rhodia pad here. It may take a little bit for the ink to, fill into the feed. It is a brand new pen after all. And you can see, ink will go into the grip section here, which in turn will go into the feed. And I don't know if you can make it out on the camera, probably not. But ink is starting to flow down, so let's just... there we go. In terms of the nib, it's a stainless steel nib. It's not super smooth or anything, but it is very fine. You see, with no pressure at all, the line I get is actually quite fine. See, that's a pretty fine line, if you ask me. It is scratchy, but it's consistent. No matter what direction I'm actually moving the pen, it's scratchy all the way around. So I'm just gonna put it off as the nib material and the fact that it's a cheap pen. For regular writing, it's not super smooth. But it's good enough. I would compare it to some ballpoints, to be honest. And it writes with no pressure. I'm just holding the pen. You can see it's a very fine line, but it does write. And let's see some line variations since this is a flex nib. So no pressure, a little bit more, a little more. Yeah, that's about as much pressure as I would put onto the pen. So you can actually see compared to no pressure and full pressure, that's pretty good line variation. Especially for a $14 pen that has a stainless steel nib. And I honestly think it spreads out so much because of how the nib is cut. It's actually a line that's cut all the way into the nib that goes into the grip section. So these lines can spread quite a bit. I don't know. Let's put my name. Not the best. I gotta kind of get a feel for it. Actually, you don't really see the line variance that much. In terms of comparing with the other pen, honestly, it feels around the same. Let me get the other pen out. I'm using a different ink in this pen. I'm using Hiroshizuku Tsukiyo. Let's write hello. Yeah, actually, I'm surprised considering all the complaints I hear about consistency. Both of these pens write very similar, although I think that they actually did change the feed up a little bit. This is probably a second generation version of this pen, whereas the first one, I think, instead of having a pointed feed, it actually let me see. You can kind of see how the feed is pointed. I think the first iteration of this pen actually had a flat top feed, so maybe that's why those were like hand fitted versus these are probably set at a specific method or whatnot. We'll compare the two, and I'll kind of bring it up close a little bit so you can see. And honestly, I'm not really sure if it's a matter of the ink or if it's the feed adjustment compared to the nib. You can see her on the left. I have the red one with the Iroshizuku Tsukiyo, and on the right I have the clear demonstrator with Noodler's Beaver. And you can see that actually on the left side, it actually flexes quite a bit more. Not really a bit, but it flexes a little more. I believe it might be because of the ink, because generally Tsukiyo, it runs a little on the wet side, so the ink will spread out a little bit more. But I can't really say for sure until I try the same inks in two different pens. Let's see how far I can go before it railroads. Oh, the first try right there. Let's get some ink on there. Yeah, so you can see like it railroads. If I try spreading the tines more than this kind of width, it'll railroad. I think what I'm going to try and do with this pen is push the feed in more and pull the nib out a little more, separate a bit from the feed. Let's just write gentle lines for now to get some ink into the feed. There we go. Yeah. So you can see the extent of. You have to really write slow with this pen. Versus, let's see this one. Yeah, they're both about the same, I guess. Probably get the same amount of lines out of it before. Either way, this is just a little excessive, to be honest. When I do my regular writing speed, when I'm practicing with the flex nib, I don't have any issues with railroading. Granted, when I'm practicing with the flex nib, I actually write very slow. I can't really do it quickly. I have to concentrate on when I'm flexing the nib as well as how much pressure I'm doing it. When I'm not really concentrating, you kind of get stuff like this where it's not very even. The lines aren't exactly thick where they should be and whatnot. These aren't terrible examples, but let's see. Oh, there you go. That was the angle. It's not so bad. The line variance is good. Variation is good, in my opinion. Let's bring you up close. See, you can definitely see the line variation. It does, put out quite a bit of ink, which is nice. One thing I like about flex nib pens is that generally you get a lot of ink put out on the paper, which means any inks that have really nice shading qualities, these pens really bring out, because on the thin lines you'll get the faintest ink color, and then on the really thick lines you get the boldest of the shades for that ink. So yeah, and you can kind of see the ink in there because it's clear demonstrator, which I really like. I kind of want to get more demonstrator pens, honestly, because it may not be practical for like an office sense, but just for like pleasure in using it, it's nice to be able to see the insides of the pen. So for $14, I highly recommend it. I'm probably going to get the Ahab in the future, just because that pen itself is just bigger. It's a thicker pen, so writing for long periods of time, it'll probably be more comfortable. And I believe it also holds a little bit more ink. I believe these two pens, when they are completely filled, they hold around 1 milliliter of ink, which honestly isn't that much, especially if you consider how much ink these flex pens really put out. You'll have to re-ink your pens quite often if you're writing a lot. Versus, I think the Ahab you could probably get like 1.5 milliliters. I'm not really sure. I don't have one to measure myself. It's just stuff that I've kind of read on the forums and whatnot. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely, if you're interested in flex pens and you don't want to put the $150 out for a Namiki Falcon, and you don't want to have to go and buy vintage pens, which honestly, vintage pens in good conditions, they're not cheap. Then I would highly recommend getting this. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.